Trickery. If you're not paying attention, you're probably getting tricked. Welcome back. And this time, I'd like to talk about freedom. Freedom specifically when it comes to freedom between one group of people and another group of people. Or, to be more precise, freedom between citizens and non-citizens, right? So, there is a desire and probably even a necessity for a nation to have to exercise different kinds of freedoms between its citizens and non-citizens. However, even though there's a practical reason for that, there is a danger that I think we ought to be aware, or every citizen in every country should be aware, specifically between the kind of rights they enjoy and the limited amount of rights that non-citizens enjoy. While for most citizens, or for most instances rather, this may not be a concern because if you're a citizen, and that's just that. It's hard to lose your citizenship. Not that it's impossible, but it's hard. So therefore, a lot of people may not necessarily care what happens to the people on the other side. However, this is a really important thing, at least to some important extent, because let's take for example the right for a trial, right? And I'm going to be speaking mostly from the U.S. point of view, but this applies to every nation, from the poorest to the richest, because it's basically the same thing, right? So this right to a trial, or the right to a speedy and free trial, or privacy, or any of those things. Imagine this: you have a government that is supposed to believe in these inalienable rights, the rights of these trials, the rights for due process, and all that other stuff. They truly believe in it. That's why the claim is that's why this country of ours enjoys those rights. But then these very same people look at somebody else that wasn't born on this imaginary line and say, well, I know you're human, but this is a little bit different. Those rights that we think are inalienable, to you, they don't apply. But basically what that really means is that the government doesn't really believe in those rights necessarily. And they were forced, for a historical reason or some beneficial reason in the past, to afford you these rights, or to afford us this right. So when they were no longer bound by these historical documentations, they outright abandoned them. Because that really means that they don't believe in those rights, but the only thing that separates us from being abused, like the non-citizens are, is that very document. And that very document is filled with what? It's filled with a bunch of words. Words translates to meanings, but the meanings of those words can change over time. So, for example, you might have a situation where somebody is not afforded a particular right because they're enemy combatant. All right, that's fine. It's fine if today enemy combatant is clearly defined as maybe somebody who is on a battlefield that's not part of a standing army participate in a fight. Now, I'm not saying that's the exact definition. I don't really know the exact definition, but it's something on that level. So a lot of people can understand, well, that kind of makes sense. Somebody like that shouldn't be afforded the rights. But in the future, if the definition of enemy combatant changes, then suddenly that law that we all thought was cool and we voted for, well, not voted for, but we all agreed to, can now be turned against us. And at that time, it'll be very hard to overturn it, because in the beginning, the public overwhelmingly agreed with it because the definition was applied in such a way that was much, much more clear. Over time, the definition becomes more and more vague and it includes more people. So the fact that a government can have separate rules for citizens and non-citizens should be the concern of every citizen. And like I said earlier, there are reasons why a nation may have to have those separations. But to the level at which it does that, that should be of concern. Because the only thing that keeps me and you from being abused by these laws, by the government, is the fact that the definition for the difference between us and non-citizens are in such a way that we agree with today. But when those definitions change tomorrow, then we become the enemy combatant. That's it for now. And until next time, I'll be around with another random thought. Later.